Welcome everybody to our presentation, Active and Safe, Young Children as Engaged Road Users in Their Community. My name is Zora Markham. I'm the Project Manager for the Starting Out Safely program, which is Victoria's road safety education program for the early childhood sector, which we deliver on behalf of the Department of Transport here in Victoria. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Catherine Hayden, who'll talk more about in our presentation.
Thanks very much, Zora. It's great to be here. And I've had the very good fortune of working with the Starting Out Safely program and Ella for about over 10 years, I think, which is an extraordinary amount of time. And we've had the pleasure of working with early childhood educators in early childhood education and care settings. So by that we mean children who are in early childhood education and care settings, kindergartens, preschools, long day services, all across Victoria, rural settings, city settings, and the educators who work with them to focus attention on how we might support children to become safer road users now and into the future. So today's opportunity is for us to talk to you about a project we did, a research project we did, which was quite unusual in the landscape of Starting Out Safely. It hadn't been done before quite like this. And we're very pleased with the outcome. We want to share with you some of the ideas about the things that we discovered and some of the explorations we made in relation to road safety education for young children, birth to 5. So fantastic opportunity to explore different ideas. So perhaps before we get started, it's great, Zora, if we contextualise some of the work that we did and some of our thinking and how we got inspiration. And Zora and I are going to just talk a little bit about some of the ideas that shaped what we actually did. So we'll talk to you a little bit about what the practitioners were doing in that conversations and the way that we talked together, as well as some of that the learnings that we produced out of that process. So I think pivotally, the things that inspired us to start this conversation was reading more broadly about children and the way that they participated in community life. And we came across this really interesting publication, Young Children's Community Building in Action, a work that picks up on a whole range of thinking in Australia and also in New Zealand. And we found a fantastic quote there from Smith that you can see on the screen now that reminded us about the ways in which children contributed to their communities. And it also pushed us into a bit of a new thinking space around seeing children as positioned as partners rather than vulnerable recipients, that they could join with adults, join with their community to think about the way that communities could be safer for everyone. The children would then start to have ideas and contribute to the thinking that created a different landscape for the communities that they were part of, that they knew well, their homes and their streets. So we wanted to pick up that idea and see if we could take it into the conversations around road safety education. And in order for us to do that, we thought we would use a model, a research model, a methodology that was really easy for people to participate in, very practically orientated. So again, I'm probably not telling anyone anything they don't already know in relation to research methodologies, but we use this because it was very practically orientated. It took a real problem and then through a process of reflection and planning and action with multiple players, children, families, sometimes local government, sometimes your next door neighbour, sometimes the school next door. We asked people to think through what a problem was in their community that related to road safety. So it could be the car park, for example, an unsafe car park or a very busy road, and then think about strategies that they could do in their community that were very locally orientated, very tangible, that helped to change that conversation or change that situation. And we wanted our educators and the people that they work with, the children, the families and the local community, to have more of a tomorrow mind, to think, well, what's going to happen in the future and how can we start to problem solve for the community? And it's interesting to note that some of these ideas, Zora, have been picked up not only in our conversations, but we see it happening more nationally. And Zora, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the connection between the work that we were doing and the broader strategy.
So when this project was being undertaken, we were still with the last iteration of the road safety strategy towards zero. And so we explored the issues, looking at those areas. But whilst we were doing it, we were also inadvertently already working along the lines of what the National Road Safety Strategy 2130 was going to be looking at, which is the social model and understanding that children, their families and their wider community can play a role in resolving issues. So we were groundbreaking in doing that kind of work right from the very beginning of this project.
And I love the way that the National Road Safety Strategy talks about non-traditional partners. And I think the young child is probably considered a non-traditional partner for our colleagues who work in the road safety space all the time. They might not immediately think that a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old might be a partner in thinking about road safety. But we want to suggest to you that that's exactly what is possible. Now, obviously, we want to really be clear here is that we didn't ask children to come into unsafe spaces. We never did that. It was very important that we utilise the regulations that we're part of, and also our community rules and laws that govern the work the things that we do in our community. We obeyed those in every single way, and we made sure that children understood and families understood that their safety was paramount, but that we invited them through that conversation to think about what we could do in their communities to make the situation safer for not only them as 4 and 3-year-olds, but also with their families and hopefully the community more broadly. So we wanted to share with you a couple of things that we did. So as I said before, we brought together early childhood educators from various places around Victoria, so both rural settings and city settings. And we asked them to come up with a question or a dilemma or an issue, something's going on in their community in relation to road safety. So here's a great example from each child. They're in Ringwood, and you can see a little picture here of their Google Map investigation. And they identified that they wanted to make it more safe for children to cross a particular street in their community. And they did this by having conversations with children, conversations with families. They thought about some of their own reflections over the last little while about how they were getting out and about into their community and what dilemmas and challenges and things that they had encountered. So we asked each of our participants to come up with a question that helped their researching process. So previous to that, I think what had happened in their engagement with road safety education is that they had been engaging in, and I guess, pretend play most of the time, that this would be an opportunity to set up a space within the context of their early childhood service in their outside or inside areas where children could pretend to cross roads, pretend to be part of that, pretend to put seatbelts on in their cars, which all are valid strategies to support children to learn about safe strategies. And we also supported people to think about the ways that they introduced safety concepts, particularly stop, look, listen and think, as a way that children would engage with safe use of the streets, for example, the roads that are in their communities. But we wanted to say to our participants, what's real in your community? How can you think about real problems and real dilemmas? And it's interesting that in this case, there was a day hospital next door, and they talked to a few people about this and thought that actually crossing this street is actually really hard for everybody. It's not just hard for the children. And for the children, they identified that crossing this street was trickier because that they had to walk a long way to get to another safer place to cross. It was a long way, and they realised that if there was a safe place to cross here, just straight outside their early childhood service, they could get better access to the station and better access to the shops in the next little space. So it was a very clear and very logical way of thinking, and it was very tangible for the children because, of course, they navigated that space on a daily basis as they arrived to the early childhood service. And the teacher in this context, with her early childhood educator colleagues, worked with the children to think about what a safer solution to Patterson Street would look like. So this is just a little tiny snapshot of some of the work that they did, but they thought a lot about this, and these fantastic drawings from the children that helped them to think through what would happen in a safer Patterson Street. And what is really important that we communicate to you today as participants in this conference is the capacity and the capability of children to come up with ideas that are very sound and probably reflect some of the things that people are researching in this space, and are really logical and really mindful of the safety of everyone, not just the safety of themselves. So we were blown away again by the quality of the work that our educators did. And of course, we joined with them in celebrating the things that the children were able to offer in terms of their thinking around solutions. Now, these children, I'll just let you know, put together some ideas and they shared them with local government. And the local government conversation is ongoing about what they would do to solve the Patterson Street safety problem. So we can let you know that that is an ongoing strategy and has been, as part of this conversation, they did get a visit from the mayor who came to visit the children and talk through the safety issues. Great way to do local advocacy. And we also wanted to share with you another part of this, another practitioner who joined with children and families to think about the safety of their car park. So as of course many of you know, navigating car parks can be quite tricky, and children coming in and out of cars into the early childhood service, back out of the early childhood service, back into cars. Lots of things happening. Pick up and drop off is quite a busy time. Anyone who lives next to a school, you'll know about all of that. So we wanted to engage children in a thinking process again that really supported a conversation for children to engage in. So great ideas here that were generated. You can see the active conversations that were taking place. This group identified a secret path that was the solution for their dilemmas, and they put it into a book which is now used in the context of the early childhood service. And I guess that now brings us to the learnings. And I know we've got a relatively short period of time to talk to you about this, but for me, Zora, one of the things that I think is most critical here is that we realise that road safety is more than the sum of its parts. It's not just what you do on a Wednesday, and it's not just what you do one day. It's a whole of service, a whole of organisation in some ways, a commitment to embedding road safety education in the work that they do. And the more real it can be, the more it relates to real practice, the better. So Zora, what for you, big learning that came out of this?
The fact that working in some detail with these very inspiring early childhood educators actually ignited even more passion for road safety education. They were already doing some great work, but giving them the opportunity to delve deeply into an issue, it had, I think, long ongoing consequences for these educators are now going to be passionate about road safety education year after year after year. They're going to inspire their children and work with the children in their service to make real changes in their community, and that these educators came away with the thought, we can make a difference. We can be advocates in a much broader context, whether it be with their local council, with the local police, whether it be with the road authorities. These educators now found that they did have a voice, and also that the children had a voice.
And I guess we want to continue that conversation with the community more broadly. And we'd love to continue conversations with people. And on this last slide, the contact details are here. So please get in touch if you want to know more information. Very happy to share the stories of great success and the ways in which our young children can be active and safe and participants in the road safety conversations now and into the future. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.